Some survival tactics don't fade with time. They don't age, rust, or get replaced by gadgets. They survive because they hit something primal in the human mind. And, one of the most powerful home defense methods ever created didn't come from elite forces or government labs. It came from ordinary families fighting to stay alive in the darkest hours of World War II. What they built inside their small, battered homes still works today, and it stops intruders faster than alarms, cameras, or reinforced doors. That wartime trick is older than electricity, cheaper than a cup of coffee, and far more effective than people expect. During World War II, cities across Europe and Britain were in constant danger. Air raid sirens split the night. Bombs turned neighborhoods to rubble. Streets plunged into blackout darkness. Everyday civilians weren't just worrying about the skies. They were worrying about what moved through the shadows on the ground. When families evacuated to shelters or fled temporarily to safer areas, their empty homes became targets. Looters, ordinary men twisted by desperation, moved through bombed streets looking for anything of value, and that forced civilians to become their own security systems. What they created was something modern security experts still study today. They called it layered passive defense, but civilians knew it by a simpler name: a silent shield, a psychological wall, a handful of invisible obstacles that made intruders hesitate, panic, and retreat. This wasn't about violence. It wasn't about trapping or injuring. It was about controlling fear itself. The most effective trick to come out of this era was something now known as the trap doorway. It wasn't a Hollywood trap, nothing dramatic or deadly. It was simply a thin wire or rope stretched low across an entryway. In the dim, suffocating darkness of wartime blackouts, that nearly invisible line became a nightmare for anyone sneaking through a house. An intruder moving fast would hit the wire, stumble, crash, and freeze. That single burst of noise was enough to destroy their confidence, and the fear that someone had just been alerted would send most looters running before they could even stand back up. This trick wasn't just clever, it was carefully engineered through experience. During the Blitz, homes were often pitch black. Windows were covered, streetlights were dead, and moonlight barely crept through smoke-filled skies. Intruders depended on stealth. When that stealth shattered, they were done. Homeowners knew it, and they used it. A wire, a line, a trip. 1 second of chaos that ended the entire break-in attempt. It was survival psychology at its finest. Modern preppers still use this method, only now it's packaged as tripline alarms, doorway chime traps, and low-tech mechanical alerts. But the principle is exactly the same as in 1940 Control the Mind of the Intruder. Make them question if the home is empty. Make them wonder who heard them. Make them rethink their entire plan. Fear is universal, and nothing triggers fear like a sudden, unexpected crash in total silence. But the trap doorway wasn't the only genius defense civilians developed. The blackout itself became a weapon. During World War II, every home had to go dark when air raid sirens sounded. Curtains were thick and tight, lamps were dim and covered. You couldn't let even a sliver of light escape, or enemy aircraft could use it as a target. But this blackout rule had an unintended benefit. A silent, pitch-black home was impossible for a looter to read. They had no idea if someone was waiting inside. No idea if a family was sitting behind the curtain with a flashlight ready. No idea who or what was on the other side of the door. And the civilians who stayed behind learned to weaponize that uncertainty. A quick flick of a covered lamp, the faint beam of a flashlight, a shadow moving behind blackout curtains. These tiny flashes created the illusion of movement and presence, and, well, that was enough to scare intruders off. Nobody wanted to confront a startled homeowner in a flooded, collapsing city. Nobody wanted to get caught. Even today, the modern version of that trick works beautifully. Motion-activated lights, randomized timers, small solar lamps inside a window. Light creates doubt. Doubt creates distance, and distance keeps you safe. Sound was the final pillar of wartime home defense. Noise carried shockingly well during blackouts. Families would hang tin cans, metal pans, or scrap pieces on strings near windows or doors. A single movement sent noise echoing through the home. It didn't hurt anyone. It didn't trap anyone. It simply exposed them. And once an intruder was exposed, their mission was over. Today, preppers use metal containers filled with stones, small bells on gate latches, or improvised clink traps that turn a simple touch into a warning. Again, the psychology behind it hasn't changed. When an intruder loses stealth, they lose nerve. The brilliance of these World War II tactics lies in their simplicity. Families used what they had: wire, string, tin, curtains, timing, and creativity. They built multi-layered defenses that work together like a complete system. A tripwire breaks stealth. A light flicker signals presence. A noise trap threatens exposure. And before the intruder even reaches the living room, they're gone. A full retreat triggered by fear, not force. These aren't outdated tricks. They aren't relics. They're timeless, because human behavior is timeless. Fear of being caught. Fear of making noise. Fear of the unknown. You don't need a smart camera to trigger those instincts. You just need layered passive defense the same way World War II families used it every night of the Blitz. This forgotten tactic isn't nostalgia. It's survival wisdom. It's practical. It's proven. And it's still one of the most effective low-tech home defense systems you can build today. If you want real security without relying on modern stuff that can fail, study how people protected their homes when staying alive depended on it. They weren't prepping. They were surviving. If you found this breakdown valuable and want more real-world tactics drawn from history's toughest moments, make sure you subscribe to History's Survival Code and share this with someone who takes preparedness seriously.